job in finance and banking. He did something illicit. Well, I shouldn't say exactly illicit. He did something one time that he thought was really clever, and perhaps it was. He bought some cheap champagne due to a mislabeling. He paid for one bottle of champagne and he got a case of 6. Ooh. So about an hour later he went back to the same store and he bought 2 more cases. And the next day he went back and guess what? It didn't work. Somebody caught the mislabeling. So tonight he's going to be speaking on honey-do list, how to change a water heater. Welcome with me, please, Andrey.
Anthony.
Now I said it right earlier. Andrey Niantchev. There you go.
Andrew. In these tough economic times, I hear people blaming themselves for spending too much, and it seems that oftentimes we hear this notion that we got into so much trouble because we spend so much. Well, I've got an interesting spin on this theory, and I believe that it's not that people spend that much, it's just that I think we overpay for unnecessary things that are overpriced. And one such thing, I think, is services related to housekeeping or maintaining the house. So really the topic of my discussion tonight is going to be probably the exact opposite of what William Twain talked about a couple of months ago. And I strongly believe that we should try to do as much as we can ourselves in the house to just save our pennies and save money. Otherwise, we just run out of budget and we end up spending too much. Just as an example, last week my garage door broke. And just to give you the magnitude of this borderline illicit trade, a maintenance technician came to my house, charged me $220 for the 30 minutes that he spent repairing the garage door. Now that's something that you never want to do yourself because people have been killed doing this, changing the spring on a garage door. But this person made probably close to what a neurosurgeon makes, probably close to what a well-paid lawyer, Mr. John Morris, half an hour, $220 in half an hour. That's probably junior partner in a major law firm. Okay. So it definitely makes sense to do as much as possible by yourself. Which brings me to tonight's topic, which is how to change your water heater yourself. It's happened to me at least 3 times, and I've helped probably half a dozen friends do it themselves. It works well every time. On a scale, difficulty scale, it probably rates between, on 1 to 10, it probably rates a 5, so it's not a really complex job, but you have to have done it once and then it gets easier over time. If your water heater breaks, you will know it right away. It happens during probably the least opportune of times, probably in the middle of the night. You wake up in the morning, you turn on the shower faucet and it's cold water. You typically will go down to the garage and you'll see a nasty leak all over the garage place. Immediately, there's 2 things you have to do right away if that happens to you. Shut off the water and shut off the electricity and open all faucets to make sure the water drains. There's no water left in the system. Now, because your water heater leaked, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have a faulty water heater. 9 out of 10 times, what the problem would be is a thing called the heating element. That's precisely what this thing is. So you don't have to change the entire water heater. All you have to do is take this guy out. It costs $3 or $4 in the Home Depot and replace it. Many people don't realize this. Now, I should probably spend some time explaining the anatomy of a water heater, which is very simple. It's basically a very big, ugly barrel, and it has 1 input line for cold water, 1 output line for hot water. It has a release valve because it's pressurized, and in case something blows up, it needs to let go of the pressure. It has a power line going into it. It also has a drain valve on the bottom, and it has two heating elements which go perpendicular into the water here, like this. So having said that, it's a fairly simple repair, but what you have to do is you have to drain the water here. If you don't drain it, it could weigh as much as half a ton, and you really can't lift it by yourself. Make sure you drain it enough below the level of the heating element, because if you unscrew the heating element, there's still going to be water, and it's going to gush right in your face, which happened to me once. And I happened to be wearing a suit because I came to check on it on my lunch break. Now, once you drain it, if it's not the heating element, all you have to do is call the water heater company. More often than not, it'll be under warranty, and they'll honor the warranty. They'll give you an authorization code. You can just go to Home Depot and the Lowe's, ask for a replacement, and they'll give you a replacement. Now, once you install the new one, there's a couple of things you might want to consider. First of all, chances are your valves are old and they wouldn't shut off. And most valves nowadays are what's called a rotary valve, which is this. It rotates. You have to do a couple of turns to shut it off. It's much more convenient to have a valve which is called a ball valve, which you just do a 90-degree turn and it shuts off. So change the valves. The best way to connect the water heater is to use solid pipes, and there's a technique called sweating. You have to use a propane torch for that, which takes a little bit of skill and practice to learn how to do. If you've never done it, I'm not going to light it up, but basically you have to hold it 45-degree angle, use something like this to where you don't burn yourself. If you're not comfortable with this, here's also a handful of wrenches. This is a good wrench. If you're not comfortable with this, you can just use a regular thread and metal to metal thread. The problem with that is a lot of times if you don't use a plumbing tape, it'll leak on you. So always use a plumbing tape. One other thing that I wanted to remind you about is always double check to make sure that your power is off. And the way you do that is you can invest in a little guy like this. This is a voltage detector. And I think it costs $4 in the Home Depot. You just run it next to a line and it starts beeping. I don't think it is. There you go. It starts beeping. So it's a real handy tool to make sure it keeps you safe. So make a long story short, you could easily save anywhere between $200 to $300, sometimes $400 just in labor charges doing this yourself. Just to cover this one more time, make sure you kill the water, shut off the electricity, drain the old unit. This may take a while. If you have the time to do it, it's a good idea to drain it every maybe 3 months just to make sure it doesn't have too much sediments sticking on the bottom. It'll also prolong the life of your unit. Once you take it out, call the water heater company. Chances are it's under warranty. Get the new one in. When you get the new one in, the warranty will probably get extended for another 5 years at a time. And I think that's a fairly easy repair. So the next time it happens to you, hopefully you remember these tips and they come in handy and you save a few dollars.